Why, in the 21st century, are so many young people turning their backs on a hyper-connected world to embrace an ancient faith full of rites, silence, and rigid rules? Is it a kind of escape, a trend, or a cry for meaning? While everything around us changes too quickly, interest in the Eastern Orthodox Church has been growing recently. This movement raises uncomfortable questions. Has modernity failed to offer stability, identity, and spiritual depth? Or have contemporary churches become too shallow for a generation seeking something greater than likes and motivational speeches? Imagine growing up in a world where everything changes all the time. Values, rules, truths, and even promises. Many young people describe the feeling of treading on quicksand, without firm ground to support decisions about identity, faith, or the future. In this unstable scenario, the Eastern Orthodox Church emerges as something rare, a tradition that has spanned centuries, maintaining practically the same form of worship, symbolic language, and worldview. Historically, this continuity formed after the schism between East and West, around the 11th century, when Eastern Christianity began to strongly value the preservation of received tradition. For many young people, this sounds like an ancient anchor amidst the modern storm. Even if in practice no institution is entirely immutable, the perception of stability exerts enormous psychological power. It's not just religion, it's a sense of order in a messy world. Research from the Pew Research Center shows that young people report high levels of anxiety linked to social, economic, and moral uncertainty, especially after recent global crises. Orthodoxy, with its fixed calendars, regular fasts, and rites repeated for generations, functions almost like an ancient clock that continues to mark time when digital ones fail. Sociologically, this connects to the human search for predictability, something studied since Emil Durkheim, when analyzing the role of religion in times of social upheaval. The curious thing is that this stability is not only doctrinal, but also aesthetic, bodily, and communal. For some young people, faith began to feel like an app in permanent update. Every year, a new version, new rules, new discourses. Many grew up within Protestantism and report confusion when seeing churches changing positions on morality, liturgy, and even central doctrines in short intervals. Historically, the Reformation of the 16th century was born with the ideal of returning to biblical sources. But over the centuries, this impulse generated thousands of denominations, each interpreting faith in a distinct way. For a young person seeking coherence, this can sound less like freedom and more like instability. It's not just disagreeing with specific changes, it's the feeling that there's no clear break. When everything can change, what truly remains? Accounts collected by researchers like Christian Smith, a sociologist of religion, indicate that many young people associate this fluidity with a church shaped by culture, not the other way around. Ethical questions appear reactive to social trends rather than the result of deep theological reflection. In this contrast, Eastern Orthodoxy is perceived, rightly or wrongly, as a tradition that responds, "We don't change because the world changed." This stance creates a strong symbolic contrast, almost like comparing a stone house to a wooden structure in a seismic area. The critique is not just institutional, but existential. If the church changes like everything else, where is the refuge? This frustration accumulates until the search for something more rigid, demanding, and seemingly resistant gains strength, and the path begins to narrow. It's not empty silence that attracts, it's demand. Many young people, especially men, say they are tired of a faith that seems to ask little and promise too much comfort. In a world that avoids effort and flees sacrifice, the Eastern Orthodox Church appears as a narrow, almost uncomfortable path, marked by long fasts, repeated prayers, and an ethics that doesn't easily compromise. Historically, desert monks like Anthony of Egypt already argued that spiritual discipline shaped character, courage, and self-control. This heritage has spanned centuries and still echoes in today's Orthodox monasteries. For young people who feel lost, this rigid structure functions as training for the soul. After all, when everything is permitted, nothing seems truly worthwhile. There is also a direct contrast with the perception of part of modern Christianity as something therapeutic, focused on self-esteem and immediate well-being. Researchers like Rod Dreher point out that many young people seek a faith that challenges, not just comforts. Services compared to motivational speeches or musical shows generate the feeling that God has become a supporting character and the individual, the protagonist. In Orthodoxy, the faithful is not the center of the experience. They submit to something greater, older, and more demanding. This resonates with a vision of masculinity linked to responsibility, renunciation, and service, not self-promotion. Curiously, the weight that scares some is precisely what attracts others. The lights are dim, the air smells of incense, and almost nothing seems improvised. For many young people, the first contact with the liturgy of the Eastern Orthodox Church is a sensory shock, like entering another time. Unlike services centered on spontaneous speech or the leader's personality, here everything follows an ancient choreography, repeated for centuries with small local variations. Historically, these liturgies consolidated between the 4th and 9th centuries. In cities like Constantinople and Antioch, when the Church sought to express theology not only with words, but with gestures, images, and silence. Every chant, every icon, and every movement carries meaning accumulated over time. For those who grew up in more informal religious environments, this sounds profound, almost too solemn. And it is precisely this symbolic weight that captures attention. The psychological effect is powerful. No one is the center of worship, and that changes everything. Studies in religious anthropology show that structured rituals reinforce the sense of belonging and transcendence, something increasingly rare in experiences shaped by entertainment. In Orthodox liturgy, the faithful do not attend. They participate in something that existed before them and will continue afterward. There is no stage, no performance, just a repetition that points to the eternal. For young people tired of overly personalized religious experiences, this seems liberating. It's like stepping out of a mirror and looking at a landscape. And when the enchantment of mystery sets in, curiosity grows, especially in a world where the first contact almost always happens through a screen. It often begins with a recommended video in the middle of the night. Between long debates, provocative clips, and dense podcasts, young people come into contact with Orthodoxy not through a temple, but through platforms like YouTube. This phenomenon, dubbed Internet Orthodoxy by researchers, has transformed algorithms into true digital catechists. Discussions about church history, ancient councils, and critiques of modern Christianity are presented with confident language and a serious aesthetic. For those who have never heard these arguments in their local church, the impact is significant. For the first time, many feel they are accessing an intellectual, ancient, and articulate Christianity. And when curiosity is fed in daily doses, it takes deep root. Studies by the Barna Group and the Pew Research Center have already shown that young people today form their religious convictions much more online than in institutional settings. Forums, live streams, and comments function as real communities, with informal discipleship and group pressure. Ignoring this space is like ignoring a public square full of people debating decisive ideas. The strength of online Orthodox apologetics lies in the combination of history, rhetorical certainty, and aggressive criticism of contemporary Christianity. The arguments are not always balanced, but they are presented with conviction. Gradually, conversion ceases to be merely intellectual curiosity and begins to seem like a logical step. At first glance, it might seem like just another church swap, like changing neighborhoods or musical styles. But when a young person enters the Eastern Orthodox Church, the change goes far beyond aesthetics or spiritual discipline. Historically, Orthodoxy has always understood itself as the direct continuation of the ancient church, viewing other Christian traditions as serious separations from the original faith. Classic Orthodox theological documents make it clear that Protestantism is not seen as a legitimate expression of the same faith, but as a doctrinal rupture. This involves profound differences concerning authority, salvation, sacraments, and even the very nature of the church. Therefore, it is not merely a matter of personal preference, but a complete reconfiguration of the Christian faith. Ignoring this weight is treating something serious as a detail. From a pastoral and theological perspective, this changes the game. A young person crossing this bridge is not just seeking more tradition, they are embracing a narrative that redefines who is in and who is out. Studies in historical theology show that for Orthodoxy, central concepts of the Reformation, such as sola scriptura and justification by faith, are rejected or reinterpreted in a radically different way. When this conversion is celebrated naively, the opportunity to understand the real impact of the decision is lost. It's like changing the entire map, thinking only the road has changed. And precisely because it is so profound, this choice poses an uncomfortable question to the other side of the story. What is failing that so many young people feel the need to go so far to find meaning? Not every escape happens out of illusion. Sometimes it reveals real cracks in the house. Many young people leaving Protestantism are not rejecting the Christian faith, but an impoverished way of living it. Excessively pragmatic churches, services conceived as products, and a spiritual language reduced to self-help created a vacuum of transcendence. Historically, this intensified in the 20th century with the growth of the seeker-sensitive model, which prioritized accessibility over depth. The problem was not seeking to reach people, but forgetting to form people. When faith loses density, attentive young people quickly notice, and when they notice, they begin to look for something that seems older, more serious, and more rooted. Theologians and historians such as Alistair McGrath point out that Protestantism has always understood itself as an heir to the historical church, not as a total break with the past. However, this connection was weakened in the daily practice of many communities. Simplified liturgies, ignorance of church history, and an aversion to symbols created a faith without memory. The result is a generation that does not find profound answers to profound questions. Curiously, this does not mean a rejection of the gospel, but a hunger for it in its most robust form. Criticism, therefore, does not need to generate defensiveness, but reform. Because before asking why they are leaving, perhaps it's time to ask what we have failed to offer. The solution does not begin with escape, but with reconstruction. Faced with this movement, pastors and communities are called to look inward and recognize that reform has always been part of Protestantism's history. In the 16th century, the Reformation itself was born as a return to the scriptures and the faith of the early church, not as a break with everything that came before. Recovering richer liturgies, theologically profound preaching, and a conscious connection to Christian history is not a regression. It is maturity. Young people do not ask for spectacle, they ask for meaning. They do not want an easier faith, but a truer faith. When the church seriously returns to teaching, forming, and discipling, something changes in the air. And this change does not depend on copying the East, but on rediscovering its own heart. Ultimately, the stability that so many seek is not in an impeccable institution, because none is. Tradition can point the way, but it cannot occupy the center. The Christian faith has always affirmed that the firm rock is a person, Jesus Christ. He does not change with cultural winds, nor does he depend on aesthetics, rite, or era to sustain those who trust in him. Scriptures, the gospel, and a living community remain sufficient when taken seriously. Perhaps the big question is not why some young people are going so far to find solidity, but whether we are willing to offer, here and now, a faith deep enough so they don't need to look elsewhere. After all, when Christ returns to the center, everything else finds its place.